Welcome to Awesome Earthkind. It's a pleasure having you on the show. If you would, let folks know who you are, where do you live, what kind of work do you do?
Sure. Well, my name's David Amster Olszewski. I live on planet Earth these days.
It's
But no,
always good.
I live in Colorado, but I've taken the opportunity to get a camper van and travel around. Um, the COVID started, and actually in Florida now.
Wonderful. Where in Florida are you?
St. Augustine, North Florida.
Very nice. Enjoying it down there. Nice and warm, right?
Yeah, it is. Well, today it's about 58, but in most parts of the country, that'd be considered warm.
It is considered warm. I'm up in New York. It's in the 20s, so
And it's warm.
enjoy.
Then it is definitely warm.
Absolutely. Well, we ask you maybe if you have a quantum quote, a little personal quote that you'd like to share that either from yourself or someone else that helps set the mindset and shifts people's brains a little bit. So, anything you'd like to share there?
Sure. One of my favorite quotes that I use a lot is from Thomas Edison, actually. I didn't fail. I just found 2,000 ways not to make a light bulb. I only needed to find one way to actually make it work.
Yeah, it's a great quote, right? Try, try, try until you succeed. So,
Right?
yes,
It's all
indeed.
about persistence when you're an
Yes.
inventor or an entrepreneur or a change maker, I think.
Yeah, or almost everything in life, right? So it's a great lesson. I love that quote. Thank you so much. All right. Well, we like to start with why. So, why are you involved with clean energy, and what kind of work do you do?
I got involved in clean energy 15 years ago, actually, with a solar energy company, and that I had worked for at the time. And the reason I was passionate about renewable energy, I mean, I think it's probably goes without saying, but there's a tremendous lot of work we have to do to make a positive impact on the world. A lot of things humans have done to put the planet at peril, and renewable energy has the opportunity to really change all of that, along with vehicle electrification, et cetera. So that's a space that I wanted to be in, to make an impact. But I also had a passion for business, and I think that business is a very powerful tool to do a lot of good things if it's used in the right way. So, I saw this intersection of business and my passion for the environment and the planet to have those two things coincide with renewable energy.
Outstanding. Do well by doing good, which is a great thing, right? So, all right. So, tell us what kind of clean energy work do you do? What are you involved with?
So I started a community solar company actually 10 years ago in March. And community solar, it didn't exist 11 years ago anywhere in the country, but now it exists in 48 states across the country. The general concept is about 80% of homes can't install rooftop solar, according to the National Renewable Energy Lab. The same thing goes for businesses. So you may have an old house, you may have trees shading your roof, you may have a roof facing in the wrong direction. You have trees on the south. You got a neighbor's house where you rent. A lot of different reasons why, when you think about it, a lot of homes and businesses aren't good for solar. And yet, when surveys are done, like Green Tech Media did a great survey years ago, said if you wanted to, if renewable energy was at least as much as your electric utility bill, would you participate in renewable energy? And even in this polarized climate, 78% of people said they would participate in renewable energy. So when you bring these two things together, you've got close to 80% of people would participate if they had the option in renewable energy, but only 80% can install rooftop solar. What else do they do? And utilities still in the United States are majority fossil fuel. So community solar was really the solution to that. It said, let's change the laws in states to let companies build solar farms and use the utilities electric systems to transport that energy to consumers. So we build large solar farms, 10 to 50 acres, and consumers can purchase the electricity from our solar farms. And they get a credit on their monthly electricity bill, just like they would if the panels were on the roof of their house. They could go visit the solar farm. It's in their community or around their community. They could go visit it. They could see it, but it doesn't have to be on the roof of their house. So it's grown very, very quickly. It's been a very popular concept. We built the first community solar garden in a competitive market in the United States in Colorado Springs, Colorado in 2011. And like I said, now you have over 20 states with statewide legislation mandating community solar programs, but you also have projects in 48 states where utilities are just offering it to customers voluntarily.
Fantastic. And the states, your company again, and the states that you operate in?
So we're in Colorado and Minnesota is the bulk of our business, but we're also doing early stage development work in several other states around Colorado.
Wonderful. And so the idea basically is that if people want solar and they can't put it on their roof because they rent or they don't have the right orientation or there's shading or whatever else, now they can participate in a project. And usually it has to be in the same utility territory. Is that usually the constraint?
Yes, and originally programs said that the project had to be in the same or adjacent county to where the customer is. But lately, a lot of those policies have been changing to broaden that to anywhere in the utility service area. So it's state by state basis. All regulation, energy is heavily regulated, and regulations for energy that is produced and consumed within one state falls under state law and state regulation. So it's really a state by state assessment. But most states are with their legislation are moving in the direction of utility service area limited.
So someone signs up for community solar with your company, and do they have to buy it? Can they sign up for a short-term lease? Are they saving money? Besides being a good consumer and a good steward for the environment, are there cost savings as well? And what are the options for them?
Sure. So it's very easy sign up process. There's no money required up front. We raise all the capital to build the projects, and customers sign up for a monthly electricity bill with us. So just like you'd sign up for your monthly utility bill, now you can sign up for a solar monthly utility bill. So think about it just like that, and you pay that over time. The economics is whether you save money or whether you pay a premium. When we talk about a premium, you're talking about $3 a month. You're talking about a cup of coffee at Starbucks, maybe. Actually, I think those are more expensive than $3 these days. But that's what you're talking about when you're talking about a premium. You're not talking about a big premium. And that really depends on the state market. Some states are heavily incentivizing these programs to get them off the ground, and in that case, you can offer customer savings. Other markets, the programs don't have as much incentives in them, or don't have any incentives in them. For example, like Colorado, programs been running close to 10 years. They don't have any incentives on them anymore. So in those markets, customers pay a slight premium if they're residential, get a slight savings if they're commercial, and the cost there is really just in the billing and customer management for small customers versus your large customers.
Oh, excellent. So in New York, it's a 10% savings. It's generally kind of the offer that comes out there from various community solar pieces. As you said, there's over 20 states that offer it, and then different utility programs. And it seems like there's kind of a few different models that are out there, right? So with your program, you just sign up for the electricity, and if you want to get out of it, how much notice do they have to get? And is there any sort of penalties or anything?
So now originally, 8, 10 years ago, the financial community, just like buying a home, right? If you're, they're going to lend you money, they want to know you're going to live in it and you're going to be responsible for the loan. It was a similar situation. They required us, if we were building a solar farm on behalf of customers, to sign them up to long-term contracts with cancellation penalties. But we've been able to convince us and others in the industry, the financial community, to understand that even if somebody decides not to participate in community solar anymore, there's a lot more people who want to participate in community solar. So we've been able to get financiers to be comfortable with shorter term contracts. So our most popular contract now is a year by year contract for customers. So it sign up for 1 year, it auto renews, or if they want to cancel, they can cancel.
And
So
if
it's really been getting the financial community comfortable with that, which have probably been helped by a lot of finance people live in New York, and now they can participate. So that helps a lot.
Yeah, no, no doubt. And again, in New York, you can generally get out of most contracts, and it depends. Each competitor is a little different, but in New York, you can get out of most contracts with just like 30 or 60 or 90 days notice, depending upon who you sign up for. With yours, it sounds like it's a year contract, and then that's something to take a look at. There's also in New York, there's a couple of people that are offering an ownership model where you can actually participate as an equity owner, get the tax credits and associated tax benefits associated with that, and then actually become an owner in a project, which is an equity position, which is kind of fun. It's nice to have different options out there, I guess, right?
It's exciting to see all the options. We had looked at the equity ownership option years ago. It got difficult because of the Securities and Exchange Commission rules around, actually selling shares in companies. And so we decided to just go with a simple subscription model because that's how people usually bought electricity. But yeah, and one thing to mention is, so for our contracts, they're annual contracts, but if anybody moves out of the service territory, if they pass away, or there's obviously there's no cancellation penalty, and actually we
Yeah.
haven't charged a cancellation penalty in 10 years.
Ah, great. Oh, good to hear. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny because when the first community solar project started happening that I was aware of, you had to sign up for like a 20 or 25-year contract, which was
Right.
pretty hefty for most people. So, and you could get out of it, but there were all sorts of ifs, ands, or buts. So it's nice to see the whole market progressing where it makes it much more simpler and easier for people to come in and go out. And obviously for renters, that makes a great deal of difference, right? So that's a
Well,
great
absolutely.
thing. Yeah, you can have solar even if you can't don't own a place now, which is fantastic. Great. Okay, so what do you see as like the trends that are driving the development of clean energy, and how big is this opportunity? Would you say?
I mean, I think that the trend is unstoppable, and it's one of the, I think, will be the most powerful trend of our generation, alongside technology. And what technology will do for the world. I think it's technology and renewable energy are the biggest trends in our generation. And I think technology is driven by consumer preference, and a lot of it's accelerated by COVID. Renewable energy is being driven by need, and it's the need to make a difference in the way that we operate, or else we're quite literally going to make this planet uninhabitable in the future for our whether it's for our children or grandchildren, our great grandchildren, et cetera. It will be uninhabitable at one point if we do not change our ways. And fortunately, the world is waking up to that. It's taken a lot longer than it should have, but that's ultimately what's driving this trend. But now it's also cost that's driving this trend, and renewable energy is beating out fossil fuels on a cost basis all over the world. So now, even if you can't get your head around the environmental benefits of renewable energy, most people can get their head around something being less expensive than fossil fuels, and that's making a huge difference.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing, right? So not only is it good for the environment, not only is it good for the economy in terms of creating jobs and economic opportunity, it's an equity position as well with economic and environmental justice. But now we can save money too. So it's unstoppable when it hits that piece. And yeah, solar and wind are now the largest sources of new generation planet wide. It's the majority of new generation coming online, and it's the cheapest source of power. So that's why. I mean, it's amazing. So
As we've seen the last 4 years, um, no matter how hard you try, no matter what you throw at this industry, it will continue to grow. And I think what you're going to see in the next 4 years is it's going to grow a lot faster without curveballs being thrown at it. So
yeah,
that's pretty exciting.
and some of this and some additional investment and a whole commitment towards making this transition. And as you said, it's not just the clean electricity portion of it, it's that clean electricity then drives that cheap clean electricity then drives the electrification of transportation with electric vehicles, and it drives the clean electrification of heating and cooling. So now we have solar and other forms of large of renewables, both on site and off site, with community solar and potentially community wind and otherwise, supplying the clean electricity that then lets us heat, cool, and drive as well. So we hit all three of the major areas of energy in our life, which are the 90% of the contribution to greenhouse gases, which causes the climate disruption. So yeah, it's fantastic.
That's the game changer here. And I'm glad you hit on it. It's the connectivity between those three things. And I was just having a debate with a very wise person, a mentor of mine, yesterday morning, and talking about how fast the vehicle electrification was going to happen. And the example he used was about Tesla. No matter how fast Tesla grows, the world is still making around 100 million cars per year. And I said, well, don't just look at Tesla. Look at it. So long as Tesla's stock price stays high, every single other auto manufacturer that is making cars hopefully wants to make money too. They're going to go follow Tesla. And once you shift 100 million cars a year to being electric, which now that Tesla is almost more valuable than all the other car makers combined, they probably will, because they'll see that's where the market is going. And it's going to happen a lot faster than we think. And the combination of those two things are the most important, because electric vehicles are driving down the cost of energy storage, which is the last thing we need to get to 100% renewable energy, and which is the biggest thing we need to increasing the amount of electricity and local distribution grids to be able to do electrification for heating. So you have cheap renewable energy, but you would have a massive cost increase if you wanted to boost up your grids in all the urban areas to electrify vehicles, heating, et cetera. But once you add storage to the mix, you solve those problems. And that's how the combination of these two technologies knocks out that close to 90% of emissions. I mean, we're talking to oil companies right now that want to switch from using their own product to electricity with storage powered by solar to pump gas. And we were even talking about, why don't we use the Tesla Semi when they come out to carry around the batteries? So just imagine that.
Yeah, it's it's a fascinating thing. So right now, there's over 54 different electric vehicles on the market today. Every manufacturer has them, whether at the top end with the Teslas, Porsches, BMWs, Mercedes, or whether you're down on the kind of middle and lower end with a Nissan Leaf or a Chevy Bolt or a whole host of other electric vehicles. The fascinating thing is, no matter where you are, no matter which brand is your favorite, there's now an electric vehicle that you can choose that can take you around. And a couple other fascinating statistics: 98% of people's trips are less than 50 miles in this country, which means that 98% of the time we can just take our electric vehicle, and if it's got a 200-mile range, we don't have to think about charging, because we just come home, plug it into the garage, and in a regular socket overnight, we now have enough electricity to take us for 98% of the trips. So when you combine that then with the increasing amount of charging stations that are happening, now we've got the piece to just exponentially increase. And yeah, you're absolutely right, David. It's an exciting time. And this storage piece is fascinating because the two-way charge discharge of an electric vehicle, which is now only available in the States currently with a Nissan Leaf, but over the next year or two, it'll be available for a lot more a lot of other vehicles. But with the Nissan Leaf, starting this summer, you can actually buy software and hardware to plug your Nissan Leaf into your garage or your home, wherever it is, and be able to discharge. And that amount of energy that's in that Nissan Leaf battery can carry the average American home 4 to 5 days without power. So imagine that, right? You got solar
What a
powering up your
game changer,
car,
right? In
right?
California, when you're talking about blackouts, I mean, and that's there's no question about it that that is going to be a game changer. And I mean, here's an example of the game changer. I was looking at a chart the other day. Somebody sent around looking at Colorado, my home state, and it was projecting the decarbonization of the state, and it showed how electrification is reducing emissions in the electric sector, and it goes through 2030. It's interesting. They show, and it's wonderful. It shows 30 to 40% reduction in emissions in the electric generation sector by 2030. However, that's what governmental agencies are still predicting. Meanwhile, the last utility in Colorado to be holding out on committing to 80% renewable by 2030 was Black Hills. They just announced to 80% renewables by 2030. So that has Tri-State, Black Hills, and now Xcel, 80% renewable by 2030. That's in the next 9 years. And Xcel just said that they're shutting down their last coal generator 2027, which means by 2028, Colorado will have no more electric generation by coal. So think about this. government statistics are saying emissions from the electric generation industry will drop 30 to 40% in Colorado by 2030. Every utility in the state has said they'll be 80% renewable by 2030, and with no coal, which was the heaviest form of pollution. Emissions are going to drop from the electric sector by well over 80% by 2030, not the 30 to 40% that you're seeing in the charts. And that's what I think when people are looking at vehicle electrification and renewable energy, they're off by an order of magnitude in terms of what reductions we are going to see in the next 9 to 10 years. It's not going to be 30 to 40% electric sector. It's going to be 80 to 90% because of what states are doing.
Yeah, and what consumers are doing too, right? So,
That's right.
part of this are the policies that drive the programs and incentivize purchases, but simultaneously, it's also consumer demand and what we ask for and what we look for. And, now that the prices are coming down, so you can buy an electric vehicle that's pretty cost competitive, especially with the
Right.
federal tax credits and any utility incentives. So, upfront costs are pretty competitive, and those costs are only going to keep coming down. But then you got no fuel because you've got reduced fuel costs because the cost of electricity is cheaper than gasoline almost across the board. No matter where you live in the country, you have no oil changes, no transmission fluid, so your total cost of ownership is dramatically less. You have 20 moving parts about instead of 2,000 in an internal combustion engine, so there's less maintenance. And overall, it's just a better consumer deal, faster, quieter, more efficient, less costly, and more convenient because now you just plug it into your garage if you got a single family residence and you don't have to worry
Right.
about going to a gas station. So yeah, I mean the changes are going to be fantastic and amazing and just going to happen faster. And we like to put out there that I have this picture that we show on the website of New York City in 1900, which was all horse and buggies and one car, and then that transition to all cars and one horse and buggy was
I know,
almost
and I know the exact picture you're talking about. I first saw
right.
it. A friend of mine at Rocky Mountain Institute had it in his slide deck years ago. I know
Right.
exactly what you're talking about.
Right, so 13 years, and that was last century, and we're much more adoptive of technology now than we ever were then. So yeah, so it's all going to happen. It's all happening. It's great. Community solar now plays a key role in it because, as you said, a lot of people can't have solar on their homes. So when you can, it's great because now if you can buy a solar system, put it on your home, and you've paid off your solar system, now if you've got an electric vehicle, you got not only free electric, but you get free transportation with your fuels. And then if you have a heat pump, you have that if your solar system's big enough and strong enough, now you've got all three. And hey, you got your battery that could take you when the grid goes down. So it's wonderful. But for those people that can't have that, having community solar is the wonderful opportunity. So fantastic. So when you talk about the impacts from your projects, could you just tell us sort of what sort of impacts you're seeing and how that extrapolates to everybody?
You actually touched on it just a few seconds ago. When you talk about consumer demand, just like with Tesla providing an option for consumers to choose renewable or to choose clean vehicles, and you see all the automakers, lost, sales were down and everything last year. Tesla, massive increase in sales. They even hit their number. Within 500 cars of hitting their 500,000 number for the year. It's the same thing in community solar, right? When utility companies see their customers choosing not to buy their product because they're signing up for community solar gardens, and they see this from the commercial customers and also the residential customers, that makes an impact. And I don't think it was a coincidence that Excel was the first major utility um, to commit to 100% renewable energy by 2050, which I think is too late, but still, they were the first major utility to do that. They were also the utility that had the first two community solar programs in Colorado and Minnesota. They were the first utility to see when customers were given the choice without the limitation of a roof to choose renewable energy, to see what happened. And those programs grew exponentially. And I think that when companies see competition, just like you see with Tesla and General Motors and Ford and Volkswagen all coming out with electric vehicles, right? The same thing happens in electricity when consumers, they're not just making a choice for their own house when they're choosing community solar. They're making a statement to everybody in that whole value stream that says, if I'm given the choice, I'll make that choice. And that sends a message, and that causes policymakers to take notice, legislators to take notice, and there's this domino effect, just like there is with Tesla. that pulls the rest of the industry around, more so than, Tesla's not about how many cars they can make. It's about how they turn the whole industry into making electric vehicles. That's what's happening. It's the same thing with community solar, rooftop solar, et cetera, in electrification industries. I think it just accelerates that. And that makes a big difference when you're looking at our CO2 emissions, the rate this planet is warming at, et cetera. 5 or 10 years makes a world of difference. So that's what I think is the most important impact that a community solar farm makes. It's not just the greenhouse gas emissions and all that specific solar farm makes. It's about what impact do you make in the broader scheme of things in pressuring other companies and policymakers and legislators to support that.
Great. So, living in the pandemic, crazy times, changed everything. How has COVID affected you guys?
I think like most businesses, it's forced us to go online a lot more. Traditionally, community solar sales has always been, by its name, very community based. I mean, we were in the farmers markets, at your local supermarkets, your local, Ace hardware stores, and door to door, throwing events and going to, your fairs and all those things. Which, obviously wasn't allowed early on in the pandemic, and even now is, frowned upon. So, we've built out our online presence. We have built out our online marketing. So we're engaging with customers in new ways. We're training our salespeople to do things, online video chats, et cetera. So I think, pulling forward that tech component in our business, probably, 3 to 5 years is how we've adapted to it.
Great. So for you, what's your next steps? What are you guys up to next?
So we're expanding our footprint in this number of states that we serve in. So we're in 2 states now. We're looking at increasing that up to 5 states. We're also looking at how do we bring energy storage into the mix for for consumers and utilities that we work with, and increasing the number of projects we have and the amount of customers we can serve. That's what our focus is, and is increasing as fast as possible to meet consumer demand.
Great. Fantastic. So if there was we call them supernovas, valuable tip, tool, or tactic that you think people should know, but they don't, what would it be?
We started talking about that at the beginning of persistence. It's it's something simple and something everybody can do. It's focus, and if you believe in something, don't give up.
Great. And like a lot of us in the entrepreneurial world have gone through, or in life in general, have gone through some tough times. And sometimes in those toughest, darkest moments, we come to some realization that then change our life and help create the next best thing. So, would you share what your worst clean energy moment is and what you got out of it?
Sure. So a clean energy moment, I think this year could give a lot of other lessons, but as it relates to clean energy, I would say when the Minnesota, which is now the largest community solar program in the country, when it was opening up in late 2014 and then into 2015, the program had so many applications go into it that Excel, the utility, freaked out, and they froze the program for 18 months. And the laws and the tariffs and the regulations said they had to turn studies for connecting to the grid around in 3 to 4 months. So you could conceivably put in an application, have an interconnection study in 3 to 4 months, and build a project that year and deliver that to customers that had signed up. And Excel took the program to the Public Utilities Commission, said they had problems with it, couldn't support the demand for it, et cetera. And it froze the program for about 18 months. And that nearly put us out of business, put a lot of other community solar companies out of business, because we're small businesses. And if you tell us we can't serve our customers, and we expended money to outreach to customers to get projects developed and work with counties to get land approved and landowners, and then you say you can't do anything for a year and a half. Not only does it frustrate the consumers, the landowners, and everybody else, but it creates problems with our bankers. And so we were in default for quite a while, and it took us a long time to pay off the debt and the penalties that we had from that. So that was a really hard lesson learned in growing a business in a very heavily regulated industry. The lesson learned on that is We now have very long-term, debt. When we raise debt, it's not for 1 year, it's for 5 or more years. So that we know this is a very heavy regulated space, it's a very long game in energy. Things don't happen quickly. Change happens quickly when you look at it from a decades perspective, but not by a year perspective. So learn very important lessons in that about how to, and that again is that lesson about persistence. There's a lot of points that we could have given up, but we didn't. We fought through it. Our lenders stuck with us. Our investors stuck with us. Our customers stuck with us. Landowners stuck with us, and we were able to make it work. And now, community solar, Minnesota's the biggest community solar market in the country now. So,
Yeah, Minnesota's always you guys were always a leader in this whole piece with community solar. So it's amazing. I didn't realize that you had gotten shut down for 18 months though. Yeah, it's pretty amazing
yeah.
that you made it through
And
it.
now the author, give a plug to her. The author of the bill, Melissa Hortman, in the Minnesota House of Representatives. This was her baby, this bill. She's now the Speaker of the House in Minnesota.
Excellent.
So you could expect some really good things, I think, coming out of Minnesota in the future. And again, you see policymakers, they support renewable energy, they get supported as well, and they move up the ranks. I mean, this is a winning formula for everybody that participates in it.
Great. Yeah, got it. Excellent. Is there a particular aha kind of moment when something came to you that was like, wow, that's it, you got it, and tell us about it and what sort of direction it took you on.
Well, my mom, actually, she had read about Colorado passing the first community solar legislation in the country in 2010, and I was working for a solar company out in California. And she said to me, you know what? We have shading on our roof. We wouldn't be able to get rooftop solar, but you're in solar. This idea looks pretty interesting. And that's what led us to build the first community solar garden in a competitive market in the United States. Was her saying that. I scratched my head and I thought about it. I said, yeah, you're right. You're right. You can only get solar, and there's so many limitations on it to doing rooftop solar, but so many more people want it. So for me, that's why I started the company. It was that little thing from my mother.
So, Mom, thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. Right? 10
Oh,
years,
that's
10 years
great.
later. This is 10 years from her saying that. It's incredible.
That's fantastic. All right, we're going to enter what we call the pulsar round. We're going to ask you some questions, and if you could have short, succinct, amazing, and we prefer mind-blowing answers. Are you ready, sir?
Sure.
All right,
Okay.
great. Here we go. What's the best advice you've ever received?
I'd say focus.
Excellent. One of your
I'm not the
personal.
best at following it.
What's that?
I'm not the best at following it.
Well,
There
we'll
tend
have
to
a
be idea
chance.
people too.
Yeah. Well, focus is good though. Persistence is great. So between the two, you should have it. Personal habits that contributes to your success.
I'd say persistence.
Yep.
Not giving up.
I kind of thought maybe it's just after everything else you said. An internet resource that you'd care to share.
I would say, for solar news and renewable energy news, I think PV Magazine is a terrific resource for that.
Okay, PV Magazine. Particular book you'd recommend to people?
Great book in this space particular is actually the Grid by Gretchen Bach. It walks through the history of electrification and the battle between Westinghouse, Tesla, and Thomas Edison, which is very interesting actually, as it's coming full circle.
Yeah,
Westinghouse went out, but now the Grid is going in the direction of concepts that Thomas Edison was promoting 100 years ago.
Yeah, and unlike the Tesla car, Tesla is named after Nicholas Tesla, who was actually around at the whole time, helping them to create everything that was happening. And people don't know quite the story about that, but that's great. So it's the Grid, eh?
So it's an easy read. It's just a fascinating read as well about the creation of a new industry. And then you think about it, how an industry has come full circle, and in some ways history is repeating itself in different ways. It's fascinating.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Wonderful. So, David, if you had a magic wand and you could change it and use it to change one thing for everybody in the world, what would it be?
I think it would be empowerment, a mental perspective around empowerment for people to realize that they could really achieve their full potential, whereas they may not realize that they can do what they're really capable of.
Yeah,
Uh,
people are amazing. They don't realize it half the time, right? So definitely
That's
empower
right.
everybody. That's
As a
fantastic.
CEO, I think that's one of my biggest roles. It's showing people how they can do things that they never thought they could have 5 years ago, and and growing people.
Yeah, people are awesome, and hopefully we all get to realize that at some point. So great, that's fantastic. All right, WTF or F? We call this point weather time fudge, an extreme weather event that you lived through, and tell us the tale, or weather time fun, the most fun that you ever had, and the type of weather it was. And choose one and let us know a story if you'd be so kind, sir.
Sure. I think back to you know a, a snowstorm, actually. There's something, if you've ever gone backcountry skiing in the snow. I one time was backcountry skiing and caught in this a bad snowstorm. I mean, you'd say, everybody said, "Oh my God, what a bad snowstorm!" But being out in the snow, being out in the forest with the green evergreen trees around you, and the trees block the wind, and you see just these big snowflakes just coming down, but without the wind. It's just so magical, and the world is so quiet, quiet that you don't hear anywhere else, other than when you're in a massive snow. There's just nobody around. The animals, everything, are hibernating. It's just complete silence, and you kind of can give yourself in that silence. You can kind of hear the majesty, for lack of a better term, that the majesty of the world, in that silence. And there's actually a few times I've been in just a heavy snowstorm like that in the back country, and it's one of the most amazing things.
Magical, fantastic. All right, what's one of the things you're most energized about today, David?
I'm most excited about what we were talking about with the connectivity, between renewable energy, renewable electric generation, energy storage, vehicle electrification, and then also the connection with home electrification, moving away from natural gas to electric heat pumps, electric water heaters, et cetera, powered by renewable energy, and how close that trifecta. How close we are to achieving that trifecta, and actually doing it for a lower cost than what a fossil fuel run world would do. And I think there is society could be. I think it reduces carbon emissions by 80 to 90% in the next decade if we put our effort behind it. The technology is all there, and that's
Techno-
exciting, very exciting to me.
Yeah, technology's here. The forces of nature here with 1,000 times more energy than we need. And absolutely right is we had on the show Carl Robigo, who was actually Austin Energy's one of the executives at Austin Energy when they set up the first solar programs way back when, and then he moved on to Pace Energy Project and done a lot of different consulting with utilities and programs around the country. And he and a bunch of folks have documented now that if we make this transition with clean electricity, clean heating and cooling, clean transportation. It's $5 trillion worth of savings. So you're absolutely right. This convergence of technologies and this ability to technologically do what we need to do is simultaneously the way that we overcome the greatest challenge of human history, really, in terms of safeguarding the future for our kids. But it's also a way to create jobs, have equity, and save money. So hey, win,
There's
win,
a lot
win,
of
win.
benefits, and it's like, this one, fortunately, this is in our control. This is not an asteroid coming from outer space that's going to create the next ice age. This is something that is human caused, which means it can also be human solved.
Exactly, exactly. You, me, and all 7+ billion of us on this planet, all women of mankind, or all Earth kind, have the ability. We are the fifth element. We can either keep going the direction we're going in, or we can change the future by doing the things that we know we need to do with clean energy. So, thanks so much, David. So, grand finale, a piece of parting advice, and if you want people to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Sure. I'd say piece of parting advice is, find, don't think renewable energy is something, and renewable energy, energy efficiency, home electrification, electric vehicles, all the things we've talked about here. Don't think that they're out of your reach. Start looking into it. Start looking at the numbers. Look for the options around you. And if there isn't an option around you, like you don't have a garage, so how could you get an electric vehicle? make that option around you. Talk to your city, get in a charging station, put it on your street. I mean, get engaged to not just take the opportunities that are around you that are currently available, but to make the ones that aren't, because now's the time to do it. People are plugged in, they're aware, they're looking for solutions. And if each of us gets out there and does one thing, we can make a significant difference. So I'd urge people, don't think this is some big problem you can't possibly solve that's outside of your control. It totally is in your control, and it's in your friends and family control. So just get out there and do something about it. Take one small step.
Excellent. And for people to get a hold of you, or
Oh, yes. My email is David at mysunshare.com. If you're interested in learning more about community solar, go to our website. We serve in Colorado and Minnesota. You can go on and sign up completely online, or you can call us or email us at info@mysunshare.com if you want to sign up for a community solar subscription, or if you want to create a community solar program if your state or city doesn't have one. We can give you advice on that. We can share some lessons learned, et cetera. Please, reach out to us with any questions you have.
wonderful. Anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to touch on?
No, I think this was great.
Uh, well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing your experience, your history, your wisdom, and your knowledge. And yeah, it's a really exciting time, isn't it?
It's a fascinating time. It couldn't be more fun. The next 5 years, I don't think I can imagine the energy that's gonna go into making change that's gonna happen next 5 years.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, David.